Whoa, glasses.
You live? What? Hey, this is recording right now. And there's other people in this.
Well, now they'll know the truth of our relationship, which is I make a lot of fun of you.
That's so true. It's not fair that I make it easy, though.
Those were cool.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, everybody, welcome. This is a little bit weird because Shannon and I can talk and see each other, but we really can't see and talk with you guys directly. So, but there are ways for you to ask any questions, everyone who is participating. So there should be a little Q&A portion down at the bottom that allows you to ask a question. If anybody wants to test that for us right now, that would be amazing. But we will get right to the meat and heart. Oh yes, thank you. We've got a couple people giving us fist bumps. Thank you. Appreciate the tests. So we'll get down to the heart. People are asking where I get my fashion inspiration. It's a secret, but follow me on the internets and I will show you the ways. So we'll get to the heart of the matter. We are super excited to be able to provide some training. Of course, we've got Dr. Shannon O Grady with us to provide that training. This is something that we want to do a lot more of because it's been a huge goal for us as a company to provide education overall for our customers and everybody who comes in contact with the brand. And also, as we of course work with a ton of athletes, we want to empower you so that you have the knowledge to be able to use nutrition and our products to help you perform and recover the best possible. But then also as an ambassador, you are also armed with more information to share accurately with people that you come in contact with. So Shannon's going to be talking about primarily two of the I can't just say products because there are actually multiple products that we're going to be talking about today, but she's going to be talking about Collagen Pro, which is we are in the midst of launching right now, really mostly just getting people super psyched about, and the feedback has been phenomenal. And then in another month, launching a new type or category of products for us called Baseline. And she'll go into more depth about that line. Really, really cool and really interesting. So I'm going to turn the time over to Shannon, and I will kind of melt into the background. I will try to help her manage some of the Q&As. Just totally any questions you guys have while Shannon is talking, please throw them into the Q&A portion, and we will dedicate some specific time to make sure we answer all of them. All right. Thanks again so much for being here. Anybody who isn't able to participate, we're recording this so we can send it to them and they can watch it later. So we'll get to it. Shannon, it's all you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Oh, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing. You go ahead and you make me a co-host, Eli, I think then.
Yeah, hold on one quick second. I know how to do this. Just have to remember, sorry. It's over here.
This would be when your glasses would.
Yeah, would help.
Okay, let me try it now. Sweet. Okay. So share, and then we move this down. Okay, So thanks so much, guys, for taking the time. And for those of you that couldn't make it, feel free to email me questions since you didn't get the opportunity to ask questions as we were going. But I'm really excited to talk about some new products that we're going to be releasing quite soon in the case of Collagen Pro, and then in the next month in the case of the Baseline series. So I'm going to start off by talking about Gnarly Collagen Pro, and then I'm going to get into Baseline. And there are 3 products in the Baseline series, and I'll go into a little bit of detail on each. So the first is a D3 1000 IU, and then a magnesium citrate, and then what we're calling an Iron Plus, which is a complex of iron, B12, and folate, plus some vitamin C. So let's start with Gnarly Collagen Pro. I'm going to give a little bit of background and science just because I kind of want you guys to understand what the current state of research is and what it supports collagen doing and what it may not fully support. And then also talk about how we recommend using collagen. And then I'll get into specifics of the Gnarly Collagen Pro product. So collagen is the most abundant structural protein in the body. It's responsible for building the structure and strength in musculoskeletal tissues like tendon, ligament, cartilage, and bone. And it's estimated that about 50% of injury in sport is injury to one of these tissues. And I'm sure everyone on this call, myself included, Eli, has experienced some kind of injury to the musculoskeletal tissue. And sometimes these can take a really long time to heal. And collagen is what provides kind of the scaffolding of these tissues. And the thing with collagen is that production declines with age. So it's estimated that in your mid-20s, early 30s, collagen production stops. And then we see kind of a degradation in that as we get older. And so if you think about athletes, all of us are aging, and then the sports that we like to do that might put strain on these tissues, it kind of sets up for possible increased injury as we, age and as we get kind of more into our sports or more into training. So I want to talk a little bit about what collagen looks like as a protein because it lends itself to how collagen should be used and how it shouldn't. So I'm sure all of you remember, but I threw this up. So protein can have a number of kind of different ways of looking at the structure. I would almost say they build on each other. So the primary structure is the simplest structure, and you can just think about it as a string of beads, and each one of those beads is an amino acid. And different proteins differ in what kind of amino acids make up the protein. And so typically high quality proteins are really high in essential amino acids because our bodies can't synthesize essential amino acids. It's essential that we get them from our diet. We can synthesize non-essential amino acids. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't get those from our diet as well. It's just not necessarily as critical. So the branched chain amino acids, which you guys may be familiar with, I've talked about them, and Gnarly talks about them a lot, are kind of a subcategory of these essential amino acids, important because they turn on muscle protein synthesis. So the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because proteins that are good for building muscle and are good for helping us recover from exercise and repair muscle are proteins that are high in essential amino acids and high in branched chain amino acids. Collagen is not one of these proteins. Collagen is pretty low in essential amino acids, and it's really low in branched chain amino acids, particularly in leucine. So, what is the deal with collagen then? Why is it of interest? Well, collagen, the 3 amino acids that you find in high concentration in collagen are glycine, proline, and then hydroxyproline, which I've added at the end of this. It's kind of a hydroxylated form of proline. So it is an amino acid, it's just not listed here. And these proteins are the proteins that, it makes sense, make up collagen. I mean, not proteins, amino acids that make up collagen. And there's been research showing that these proteins in concentration around those musculoskeletal tissues that I just listed, like ligaments and tendons can help stimulate collagen synthesis. So even though collagen is not high in the essential amino acids and the branched chain amino acids, like something like whey, it is high in these other amino acids that might serve a different purpose. And that different purpose informs us as to a different use. So high quality proteins like whey, or a high quality vegan protein like pea protein, those are things that should be taken post-exercise or included in your diet throughout the day in order to keep muscle protein synthesis stimulated, and also to provide the building blocks or the essential amino acids that your muscles need. Collagen is something that you would take, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, actually before you exercise when blood flow is high. And so that blood flow actually acts as a way to get all of those amino acids to your joints, which normally don't see a ton of blood flow. So as opposed to replacing high quality dietary proteins with collagen, you would add collagen on top of the high quality dietary proteins you guys should already have in your diet. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that a bit more later. But I just kind of, as we're talking about amino acids and protein structure, wanted to really distinguish between those two classes of proteins. Okay, so I was going to kind of poll you to make sure you were listening, but I think I kind of, drove it into the ground a little bit. Is collagen a good protein for building muscles? Why or why not? So your answer should be no. And the reason should be that it's low in essential amino acids and it's low in branched chain amino acids. So branched chain amino acids are the thing that kind of turn on the light. And you can think of essential amino acids as the electricity or what actually provides, what would cause the light to light up. So building blocks and kind of the on switch, whereas collagen doesn't have either of those things. So it's not ideal for that purpose. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what collagen does look like. So this is going to provide background for what I'm going to talk about in a couple slides, which is the difference between different types of collagen, which we see on a lot of products. So collagen has a pretty predictable amino acid sequence. It looks like kind of triplets of three things. So glycine, which is one of the three that I just mentioned. And then the two positions after it, X and Y, are usually filled by proline and hydroxyproline, but there's some room for differences between different types of collagen. And you get this triplet repeating along that whole string of beads that we just talked about. Then those beads turn into what's called a helix, and then you get three of those helices kind of bonding together to form a triple helix. Triple helix you also see in things like DNA, so you might be familiar with that term. So often, in collagen products, you hear the terms hydrolyzed collagen or collagen peptides. And what that simply means is they take that end product of the collagen, the triple helix, and they use enzymes to cut that protein in a specific way. And what it does is it makes it way more digestible. It's really hard. You can't digest whole protein. You have to break it down. And so by breaking it down into those peptides or smaller groups of like 3 amino acids, you then absorb more of it. And sometimes your body maintains those peptides, and sometimes it breaks it down into the individual amino acids. And that's what then has the impact on different metabolic pathways in your body. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So can collagen supplementation actually help repair and strengthen musculoskeletal tissue? So let's look kind of at what the research or the current state of research shows. So gelatin and collagen peptides, research shows that they are absorbed by the body, and that amino acids from gelatin and collagen peptides are actually integrated into, there are studies showing that they're integrated into the skin, into ligaments, and into cartilage. And the way they do this is they'll take gelatin or collagen peptides and kind of put a marker on the amino acid, and that marker can look like a few different things, and I won't go into specifics of that, but then they look for that marker in those tissues. And when they see the marker in those tissues, then it's evidence that it was integrated from the gelatin or collagen peptides that were consumed. So that's definitely true. There's also research showing that gelatin and collagen peptides plus vitamin C increase collagen synthesis and the mechanical properties of bioengineered ligaments. So you can imagine it's pretty hard to test whether or not you see collagen synthesis in a live being in a ligament or a tendon in their joint. It's hard to even do it in muscle. You can do muscle biopsies where you're removing, a piece of muscle from someone. But when we're talking about a ligament or a tendon that's small, and then in a joint, it makes it even harder. So they've done studies where they've created these bioengineered ligaments, and then they look at the reaction of those ligaments to different things. And they've even done studies where they've given human beings, gelatin or collagen peptides. They've had them exercise. They then take blood from those people, and then they use that blood that's been extracted from humans on the bioengineered ligaments and look at the impact that all the nutrients in that blood have on the ligaments. And that's where they see this increased collagen synthesis. They also have research into animal models that support this, but it's a lot harder to do those kind of live studies that we see in muscle in the case of things like joints. And so that's why we don't quite have all the research we'd want to see in this case. They've also done studies showing that supplementation with collagen peptides decreases joint pain. So one thing that they can do, right, is they can give people and athletes these supplements, and maybe they have a background of osteoarthritis, or maybe they just have chronic joint pain, and ask them how, after a certain period, ask them on different rating scales how that pain feels. And they have shown in multiple studies that supplementation with collagen peptides decreases joint pain in both athletes with minor pain and in patients with chronic osteoarthritis. So that's also promising. I will say too, for a long time, I was a little bit of a collagen skeptic. And it's not that I'm not skeptical now. I'm still always waiting for new research to come out. There are also studies showing that whey protein can also stimulate collagen synthesis, but they've never compared collagen to whey protein. And so it's really unknown if one is better than the other. That is why I am wholeheartedly behind, adding collagen to your diet, but not replacing any other proteins in your diet with collagen, just adding it in that kind of pre-workout drink or as a standalone, and then following up with high quality protein after. So what conclusions can we draw from these studies? So increased collagen synthesis should potentially prevent injury by taking that degradation in collagen that we talked about with age head on, and also potentially speed recovery from injury by increasing the collagen regrowth that we need to see for that recovery to occur. So both of those things are possible. They are definitely hard to test. It's hard to know whether or not collagen supplementation actually prevents injury. And most of the studies that have been done showing that it speeds recovery have a really small sample size. I know there are a few studies out that just are an N of 1, where they've put somebody in a recovery protocol that includes collagen, it includes extra protein, it includes specific exercises. So to turn around and say the result is just from collagen is hard, but you can definitely say that it's part of the equation that helped that person recover faster. Okay, so let's get into types of collagen a little bit. 80 to 90% of collagen in the body is usually type 1, type 2, and type 3. And type 1 and type 3 are usually found together. So everywhere you find type 1, you also find type 3. And you find type 1 in bone, skin, dentin, cornea, blood vessels, fibrocartilage, and tendon. So tendons and ligaments are both going to be mostly type 1 cartilage and some type 3. Tendons are bind from muscle to bone, and ligaments bind from bone to bone. So you also find a little bit of type 2 in both of these, and that's going to occur at the bone insertion point. You predominantly find type 2 collagen in cartilage. So an example would be the articular cartilage in your knee. And type 2 collagen is usually used in studies, in the studies I referenced before, looking at osteoarthritis in the knee, and has had some really positive effects on pain reduction. So there are actually, I think currently 28 types of collagen that have been discovered, but just to reiterate, the majority of collagen in our bodies, 80 to 90%, is of those 3 types. So does collagen type matter? This is something that I've been looking a lot into, and I think it's pretty interesting, the research that's out there versus kind of what you see in collagen products. So this is an example, this little diagram that I put up. It's pretty clear, like through this marketing, they're saying type 1 collagen is good for your skin. It minimizes fine lines and wrinkles, improves skin elasticity, strengthens hair and nails. It's good for muscle recovery. Type 2 collagen, of course, they have the knee highlighted. It's important for collagen and joint health, right? But type 1 and type 3 collagen are part of joints as well, because they're the majority of tendons and ligaments. And type 3 collagen is important for gut health, improves skin elasticity and hydration. So I think it serves companies to have specific benefits for specific types of collagen, but the research isn't really there. And I'm going to kind of make the case in this slide. So as I said, these 3 types of collagen are the majority of collagen in the body. As we talked about before, the amino acid sequences of collagen are very similar. So the majority, or what kind of defines collagen as a protein, is the presence of those 3 amino acids. So glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline. And although the triplets of amino acids that occur in collagen might differ, when you break down that collagen into peptides, those amino acids are still the same, right? Especially if they're then digested into singular amino acids. There is some research that the peptides, or those groups of amino acids, may differ from type to type, but most of the research showing the impact collagen has really shows the impact of the amino acids, and the impact of those peptides hasn't really been determined. So there is a possibility that might play a role, but the current state of research doesn't support it. So another thing to note is that all of the research showing a benefit of a particular type of collagen compares that single type of collagen to a placebo. So all of the research showing that type 2 collagen is good for osteoarthritis, with the exception of one study I'll talk about in a minute, just compares type 2 collagen to nothing. There are only two studies that I've found that put one type of collagen next to the other type to see if there's any difference. And one study compared type 1 and type 2 collagen and osteoarthritis, and it showed a benefit of both types that was just statistically indistinguishable. That's really hard to say. It's a lot of syllables in 2 words. And so both of them were beneficial, and neither of them were better than the other, and both were better than taking nothing. And then the other study actually didn't show a benefit to either of those. And so I think I kind of showed you that if there is a benefit specific to a type of collagen, it's not supported by research in its current state. And to show that kind of benefit, more studies need to be done, really comparing one type to the next. And so currently in Gnarly Collagen Pro, I'm going to get into the specifics of our product now, We have collagen peptides, so those broken down parts of the amino acid that are sourced from pasture raised and finished cattle. And the majority of that is going to be types 1 and 3. So those are the types you find predominantly in tendons and ligaments. We've also included 100% of the daily value of vitamin C to improve collagen absorption. And there's a lot of evidence as well that vitamin C also stimulates collagen synthesis on its own. We've also included 15 milligrams of zinc. So zinc can be really important for collagen protection and synthesis. It's also really important for wound healing. So a lot of evidence that zinc can help with wound healing. So in the case of injury recovery, this dose of zinc could be extremely helpful. It felt kind of weird for us to make an unflavored product because we spend so much time on really making sure our products taste good. But because of the nature of use of this product, so as we talked about, it needs to be taken before training. So you benefit from that increased blood flow to your joints that usually don't get a ton of blood flow. We didn't want to add another flavored thing that you would add, try to add to our pre-workout or our BCAAs. So having it unflavored allows you to seamlessly add it into products you may already be using in your pre-workout routine. It also mixes great into hot or cold liquids, so it works great in coffee. You can, do that maybe if you're using it consistently, you could take it on an off day and mix it in coffee. Regardless, I would still say if you can have some kind of activity or motion after that, it's only going to benefit for transporting it to the places that you need it to be transported to. So there's no reason that collagen may, go to those joints unless you have that blood flow to those joints to really transport those amino acids to where they need to be. So it should be taken 30 to 60 minutes before exercise, and then always make sure that you follow up with that high quality protein after. And I forgot to put this on the slide, but I wanted to mention it too. We've gotten a few questions since we announced that we're launching a collagen product about whether or not we would ever come out with a vegan collagen. And so there is no plant-based collagen. It doesn't exist. Collagen only exists in animal tissues. So we wouldn't call it vegan collagen if we did. And there's a possibility that, we could take all of the amino acids that you find in collagen and, put them into a separate product that would be beneficial. And we may do that in the future, but I'd say for now, there's still not enough research showing that just that would have the same impact on collagen synthesis as taking a collagen or a gelatin product. So until I see kind of the research supporting that, it's not something that we would jump into. But hopefully some research will follow, because I think there's definitely interest in it from the plant-based world. So I wanted to stop halfway and kind of answer any questions you guys might have before I jump into the baseline products.
Awesome. Let me help out with that case, Shannon. So far, not a ton of questions that have been submitted, but one of the first ones is Teague kind of asked, he mentioned that BCAAs are kind of the switch, and essential are the electricity, is what he kind of mentioned. And he wanted to know if he had that accurate.
Yeah, that's accurate. So that's the reason why we recommend taking BCAAs before and then protein after, because for a long time people took BCAAs after training. But if you don't have those other essential amino acids, then you're kind of just turning on the switch and you don't have the electricity for the light to go on. So it's like having, a light that you're turning off and on, but it's not actually plugged into the wall. There is some research showing that in cases of really low protein intake, so there's a lot of research in the elderly showing this, that BCAAs in and of themselves can make up for that low protein intake, but ideally in an athlete post workout, you want the BCAAs, which are turning on the switch, and you want the building blocks to actually build the muscle. BCAAs beforehand are great because the research shows that having branched chain amino acids in your system while you're exercising actually minimizes muscle protein breakdown. And so by doing that, you're optimizing your recovery. And so it's kind of the mix of the perfect, mix if you have minimal muscle protein breakdown while you're training, and then you're giving your body what it needs to repair and build new muscle after training.
Awesome. Anna was asking, well, so you specifically kind of talked about a plant-based collagen and discussed that that component, but she asked specifically, where is the collagen that we are producing? Where is it derived from?
Yeah, so it's so the cattle are Brazilian cattle, and it's bovine hide collagen.
And so, kind of building off of that, Lauren asked, what are finished cattle? And he's like, should I know this? She's like, I'm sorry, I'm a city kid. What does finished cattle mean? And
no, you're good.
I'm not sure when she's pulling that exactly.
I can have Tim correct my grammar. I may not have phrased that correctly. So often in cattle feeding, something can be raised on grass, but then they're finished on grain. And so the grass versus grain leads to differences in kind of the fat profile, and also just has environmental implications. And so a pasture raised and finished cow would be a cow that was both raised and finished on grass in pastures. That's not a bad question at all.
And Nina asked if you could, she thought she heard that you said you could add collagen to coffee, and she just wanted to make sure that she heard correctly.
Yeah, you definitely heard correctly. It mixes great. My husband does it every morning.
Good. So that may, we have actually a couple of questions that are really focused around timing. And I can ask the specific ones, but Shannon, it might be good to specifically talk about the timing of collagen, when to optimally take it, and then like compared to like putting it in your morning coffee, say before you go to training, why or when would you do either or?
So the research that I've seen, and there haven't been enough studies to show like this is too early versus this is too late. But the research protocol, so most of the research on collagen that's come out more recently, and the research that involves those bioengineered ligaments that we talked about is out of UC Davis. Keith Barr is the name of the researcher. He has a lot of great podcasts, and if you guys are interested, we can send those out so you can listen for yourselves. But his research has that collagen intake an hour before the exercise. And my guess is the reason why an hour is great is because of the time that it would take for you to digest the peptides and then get them into your bloodstream so that they can be transported to joints. Whole protein, so like if a whey protein or something, is usually like 2 hours to fully digest it. But because this collagen has already been pre-digested by those enzymes into smaller groups of amino acids, it's going to be absorbed more quickly. Something like branched chain amino acids, which are singular amino acids, the research shows that they're absorbed in 20 to 30 minutes. So you can kind of see that like singular amino acids, less time, 30 minutes, peptides, an hour, whole protein, 2 hours.
Yeah, that's good, because Teague had specifically asked, how long it takes to get into the bloodstream. So that is kind of the answer for that, and what is the timing window? And right along with that, Sherry had asked if collagen is effective if you only take it 10 to 15 minutes before exercise. So if you're taking it really close to working out, and
Yeah,
then
I guess that would depend on how long your exercise is. So potentially if you missed you missed an hour out and you're like, oh crap, I've got 15 minutes, should I take it or not? So a few things would factor in. It's pretty light. So I usually add it to my BCAAs. And I don't necessarily feel heavy after consuming it. And I think for a lot of people, depending on the exercise you do, having something in your stomach might, 10 to 15 minutes before that feels heavy might not be, the best course of action. So I would test it and make sure that, it sat well with you in that time frame. But if you were exercising for an hour to an hour and a half, you would, by that time, some of it would be in your blood and it would be transported to your joints by that increased blood flow. So as long as it sat well with you, I would still, take it 15 minutes out.
yeah, good. That kind of, I think, answers the last question that Teague had kind of been building up to, which is, he has various lengths of workouts. Some crazy people, work out to like 12 hours. They do long events. So just managing like when to take a product like this when you have a short workout, like a quick window, it's a 30-minute workout, and you're doing a longer, endurance type workout.
Yeah, totally. Cool.
Okay.
Those are all great questions. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Should I jump back into baseline, Eli?
Yep.
Okay. So now I want to spend a little bit of time, a little bit less time. I'm not going to go into quite as much detail, but talking about Gnarly Baseline and just the idea behind these products. So the series is really designed to help you fill in nutritional gaps in what we're calling your baseline health. And your baseline health, you can think of as maybe emotional, mental, and nutritional health. And it's hard to think about performance goals unless that baseline health is in a good place. I mean, you can almost think of it as self-care. So making sure you're eating the right things, making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're taking care of other stressors in your life, and making sure that baseline and that foundation is strong in order to support optimal performance and recovery. And we really felt in talking to athletes and talking about other products that they took and other needs that they had, that coming out with science-backed, simple products that would help fill in these nutritional gaps would really be doing a service and supporting the foundation that so many of us are looking to build off of as far as performance goals. And so that's really kind of what this series is about. Whoops, wrong. And so the first product in this series is vitamin D, which we all have heard a ton about, but I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about the importance of. So vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, but it's not just a vitamin, it's a hormone. And when I say fat soluble, so there are two classes of vitamins. There are water soluble vitamins, which are excreted in the urine. And then there are the part of the vitamin that's not absorbed right away and used is excreted in the urine. Fat soluble vitamins, which are A, D, and E, are all actually stored in our fat stores. So this also kind of informs, often people think a little bit of something is a good thing and a lot of something is even better. In the case of fat soluble vitamins, I'd say that's not the case because we store it and we don't necessarily know what chronic high intake of these, what the implications can be. But it's also important because it's also a hormone, which means that it kind of travels from tissue to tissue and turns on things in our body. So a really important thing to incorporate in our lives. It's integral to immune function, protein synthesis, muscle function, cardiovascular function, our inflammatory response, cell growth, and musculoskeletal regulation. So it impacts a lot. It's only found in a few foods. So the major food it's found in is mushrooms. And in mushrooms, you find vitamin D2, which is called ergocalciferol. And there are a lot of studies comparing D2 to D3, which is cholecalciferol, which is what's in our product, and showing that cholecalciferol is actually better at raising vitamin D levels than the D2, than the ergocalciferol. So food, although it's in a few foods and it's fortified in things like milk, we shouldn't necessarily count on those foods for the majority of our vitamin D. The majority of vitamin D, which I'm sure you all know, is synthesized in the skin upon exposure to sunlight, which is UVB rays. So vitamin D deficiency is a worldwide problem, largely due to this limited sun exposure. And this can be limited exposure to sun based on lifestyle. So working, 9-to-5 job and being indoors when those prime sunlight hours, are occurring. It can be due to wearing sunscreen, which I'm not saying you shouldn't wear sunscreen, but in trying to limit your exposure to the sun, you're also limiting the ability of your body to produce vitamin D. And then even pigment in the skin can have an impact on vitamin D production in the skin. So deficiency is worldwide, and it's definitely a documented problem in athletes. Research has shown that when vitamin D deficiency in athletes is corrected, you get fewer respiratory infections, and you also get reduced injury rates and overall better sports performance. So these are some of the reasons why adding it in as part of this baseline series kind of seemed like a no-brainer. So let's talk a little bit about baseline D3. So it's, as I said, vitamin D3, the cholecalciferol form. So it's the active form of vitamin D. It's the form that we produce in our skin. We wanted to get a plant-based form so that our vegan and vegetarian athletes could use it as well. So most vitamin D3 is actually derived from lanolin, which is from sheep's wool. So most D3 you find, unless it specifies that it's vegan D3, is not plant-based. So ours is from lichen, and we include 1,000 international units, which is 25 micrograms of vitamin D3. So as I mentioned, a lot of people like to superdose with vitamin D, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you've been clinically diagnosed with a deficiency. You might need to take really high levels of vitamin D to come out of that deficiency. We chose 1,000 IUs because it's a moderate dose, and some people, especially in the winter months, may choose to take 2 capsules and get 2,000 IUs a day as opposed to 1,000 IUs. But we wanted to make sure that that base level was something that individuals could work with and judge what would fit into their lifestyle best. So all of these capsules, or all of these products, are in vegetarian capsules, and the vegetarian capsule and the rice bran are the only other ingredients. And the reason why we went with a capsule as opposed to something like a soft gel or a tablet is really to keep these products super clean and really simple. So in things like soft gels or in things like tablets, you need a lot of other excipients, and capsules are really just the cleanest way to deliver these ingredients. And so we feel really good about kind of just having 2 other ingredients beyond the active itself. Okay, so that's the baseline D3. The next thing I'm going to talk about is our magnesium product. So magnesium is involved in more than 300 metabolic reactions in the body. It's important for nerve and muscle function. So some of you may have heard that magnesium can be helpful for sleep, and it's not because it necessarily does anything to make you sleepy. It's because it can help relax your nerve and muscles. And so that's the role it plays. It can be, it's important for heart rhythm, blood pressure, immune function, bone integrity, calcium absorption, and even maintenance of blood glucose levels. It's also required for activation of vitamin D in the liver and kidneys. So they've done studies where the goal is to try to correct a vitamin D deficit, and they've given groups just vitamin D3, and then they've given them D3 and magnesium, and actually seen a better correction in the D3 and magnesium group than in the just vitamin D group. So these two really work together. And the reason is because it's been estimated that about 60% of adults in the US are actually deficient, and magnesium deficiency has also been documented in a wide range of athletes. So correcting magnesium deficiency specifically in athletes, research has shown that it can improve blood pressure. So lowering blood pressure both during and after exercise, which is a measurement of blood flow in the body. And then that can also lead to improved muscle function. So let's talk a little bit about Gnarly Baseline Mag Citrate. So in each capsule, there's 200 milligrams of magnesium from magnesium citrate. And we chose magnesium citrate because it's highly bioavailable and well absorbed in the body. So the thing about magnesium is that magnesium is also often used as a laxative. And that's because if you choose a form that's not well absorbed, it stays in your gut, and your gut sees this differential between concentration in the blood and concentration in the gut, and it shuttles water into your gut to try to dilute the concentration, which leads to gut distress and that laxative effect. So choosing really bioavailable magnesium has a huge impact both on how well that product's going to work, but also how your gut's going to feel after. So magnesium citrate is one of the best absorbed forms of magnesium you can find. And then similar to the D3, you're only going to find the magnesium citrate, the vegetarian capsule, and the rice bran in this product. And I really will be recommending D3 and the magnesium both together because they're kind of work in synergy that way. And I think for the majority of people who pay special attention to their diet and incorporate a lot of things like legumes and nuts, they may not be magnesium deficient. And that's kind of, I think, up for everyone to determine whether or not they would need this product as well. Okay, so the last one we're going to talk about is our Iron Plus, which is iron, B12, and folate. So iron is the functional component of hemoglobin and myoglobin, which are the proteins that deliver oxygen to the body. So hemoglobin is kind of responsible for delivering oxygen to the lungs, and myoglobin is responsible for delivering oxygen in the muscles. B12 and folate support healthy red blood cell production, and deficiency in either of these can result in abnormal red blood cell production. So iron deficiency is common in 3 groups. So menstruating women, or I should say women of menstruating age, vegans and strict vegetarians, and endurance athletes. So any one of these groups can be deficient. And if you fall into more than one of these groups, deficiency is highly likely. Vegans and strict vegetarians are also at risk of B12 deficiency because it's primarily found in animal tissue. And so really two of the nutrients that anyone that's a vegan or on a strict vegetarian diet should supplement with are iron and B12. So improving iron status specifically in athletes, research has shown that it increases work capacity and reduces heart rate and lactate concentration during exercise. So really impacting that deficiency in active athletes has a huge impact on performance. So let's talk about Gnarly Baseline Iron Plus. So each capsule has 25 milligrams of iron bisglycinate. So this is a highly bioavailable form of non-heme iron. So heme iron is animal-based, non-heme iron is not. We went with non-animal based iron, so that vegetarians and vegans who are more likely to be deficient could use this product. Heme iron is better absorbed than non-heme iron, but a lot of people that are plant-based won't take heme iron because of the sourcing. So that's why we went with a non-heme iron. Iron bisglycinate is also really gentle on the stomach, so it's well absorbed, and most people tolerate it really well. We also included 15 milligrams of vitamin C to improve iron absorption. So taking iron and vitamin C is way more impactful on bringing up iron levels than taking iron alone. There's 50 micrograms of methylcobalamin, which is the active form of vitamin B12, and then 400 micrograms of L5 methyl tetrahydrofolate, and I just abbreviated it there because it's a mouthful. But it's the naturally occurring form of folate in food. So if you pick up your average multivitamin, or even if you're taking folic acid in another supplement, you'll usually see folic acid on the back. And folic acid is the synthetic form. So folate's what you find in food. And interestingly, there's a step in the conversion of folic acid to folate, which your body, has to do if you're supplementing with folic acid. And one of the enzymes required for that conversion, I think it's like 30% of the population has a genetic mutation that doesn't allow them that conversion. So also including this methyl tetrahydrate form allows everybody access to this nutrient. Whereas if you include folic acid, then a significant part of the population wouldn't actually be benefiting from that form. So that's another reason why we included this form instead of just adding folic acid. But this product's really meant to help with iron supply, help with those groups that might be iron deficient that we talked about, and improve kind of the capacity of our blood to hold oxygen and to give it to the tissues that need it. Okay, that's it. Thanks so much, guys. And if you have any questions on the baseline products, or even on collagen, if you thought of one while I was talking about those baseline products, I'd be happy to take them.
Yeah, we've got a couple, Shannon. To start off, it's kind of a statement, but I think it will create just a little bit of conversation that you can detail out a little more. And this comes from Teague, and a little context around this statement. Teague had a pretty severe injury about I guess it's exactly about a year ago. And I don't know if I've seen a more dedicated individual to recovery. He has been just fully dedicated to that process. And he made this statement, this is pertaining to vitamin D, excuse me. He said, this is a mega pertinent for me at the moment. Blood test just showed I'm low, which matters as I'm continuing to heal. He's been taking 800 IU 3 to 4 days a week, though he's learning it's not enough. Some folks don't absorb. We may think that as outdoor athletes, we get a lot of sun, but winter digs us into a hole. So there's a lot to talk about this. He said, surprisingly, mountain athletes are deficient, and the RDA is like 400. So.
Yeah, I think a larger number of people are deficient than think they are, just because it's consistent day in and day out. And it's not like you're outside all day on a Saturday and you store up that vitamin D and that lasts you for the week. So you kind of need to think about that consistency. And if you tested, and are clinically deficient, then you need way more than 800 IUs to dig yourself out. Probably more than 1,000, I would say. 1,000 is a good place, I think, to start if you are not deficient and you're going into winter months, or your sun exposure is going to be less. It's a good kind of maintenance dose. But if you are deficient, you definitely need a higher dose for sure.
Awesome. Kenzie asked or made a statement also. I think specifically talking about the magnesium, and you talking about laxative effect. Kenzie's an endurance athlete, so she says, I hear, quotes around laxative effect as an endurance athlete and think, yikes. Would you recommend you lay off magnesium product during training periods where you're training for long periods of time, or races, or even around events, probably?
Yeah, so I would try, when we should have these beginning to mid December, and I would try it and first and see. 200 milligrams is not a huge dose. People, normal dose of this product ends up being like 200 at the low end and 600 milligrams at the high end. And I think because the magnesium citrate is better absorbed, and at a 200 milligram dose, you're less likely to have that laxative effect. There's always a possibility, but I also noticed when I've taken magnesium that I was taking 400 milligrams for a while, and for a week or so, I had a little bit of an effect without going into so much detail on a Zoom call. But
Save that for later.
I know, exactly. But after that week, somehow, I don't know if I started absorbing more, or I stopped having that laxative effect, and I was continuing to take it. So one, I doubt you'll have it with the magnesium citrate at 200 milligrams. It's specifically why we chose that dosage and that form of magnesium. But if you do, it wouldn't last very long, would be my guess. And if it did, then I would definitely stop taking it before your race.
Shannon, do you mind taking it off screen share and we can talk face to face?
Yeah. Sure.
Couple more questions here. So another, hold on, sorry. Kind of got switched up on me. Kenzie also asked, does a more bioavailable form of iron like Gnarly's Iron Plus make it less likely that you'll get nauseated trying to digest and absorb it? I've never taken an iron supplement that doesn't make me nauseated, she said. Yes.
Have you ever, I'm throwing a question back and she can answer it later. If she knows if she's ever taken a bisglycinate, it's known to be super well tolerated. And so if she hasn't, I would try it. But yes, that's why we chose that form, is because it's less likely to cause kind of that stomach distress.
Great. We will see if she makes any other additional comments about that. Ben Light asked, she just said, awesome, thanks. Cool. Ben Light asked, what's the best time to take each baseline product? I currently add a vitamin D and magnesium to my post-workout Gnarly protein drink. Is this good or bad? He says, I figured at the end of the workouts, my body would want to absorb more nutrients at the time.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ben. I'm not sure if post-workout absorption is better, but vitamin D, because it's fat soluble, it's always going to be better absorbed if taken with other fats. So I think it's good that you mix it in. If you're using vegan, which has fat in it, or you're adding other ingredients that are a good source of fat, that's only going to improve the absorption of it. And then iron should definitely, this is another thing for you, Kenzie, if you take iron with a meal, it helps kind of with that stomach issue and tolerance. So that may improve it. I will say one of the reasons it's important to take iron as a standalone instead of taking it as part of a multivitamin is often other minerals like calcium can impact the absorption of iron. So you don't end up seeing as much of it as you would if you took it by itself. So while it's important to take it with a meal, if you are taking other supplements that have calcium in them, I wouldn't take those two together.
Good. That kind of, I think, plays a little bit into Sherry's question, which is, if you already take a multivitamin, when should you take the vitamin D, magnesium, and iron supplements? Same time, space them out, does it matter?
So the vitamin D and magnesium should be no problem taking with your multi. I would pay attention to what levels your multi has in it. If it's likely they already have vitamin D and magnesium, my guess is the vitamin D is not enough. The magnesium may be enough. It might be close to 200 milligrams, but just look and see what's in there. But those you could take with the multi. The iron I would separate.
Shannon, this might be a good time to also talk about, these baseline products in conjunction with like Gnarly Performance Greens.
Yeah, I mean, so the vitamins and minerals in Gnarly Performance Greens are all naturally occurring based on the whole foods that are in Gnarly Performance Greens. So it's really high in B vitamins. I think it's got a good dose of vitamin C. Vitamin D is not going to be there because you don't really find vitamin D in many foods. Iron, it has a little bit of, but not very much. I don't know the levels off the top of my head, but it would definitely, I know a lot of people take Gnarly Performance Greens as kind of their whole food vitamin. And this would be a nice complement to that, because these three products kind of fill in gaps that you wouldn't find in Gnarly Performance Greens based on the foods that we use in those.
Yep, good. So Michelle asks so she makes a statement and then asks kind of a question. For a while now, she's been having these moments where she feels really faint. She's never actually passed out, but always kind of feels like these situations are related somehow to girl stuff, i.e. menstruation. So especially after taking a blood test for diet that resulted in the recommendation of eating more meat, how does Iron Plus come into the play for women specifically?
So because menstruating women lose blood on a regular basis, that's where the need for increased iron comes in. I think as for older women that are, menopausal, iron supplementation is not necessary at all. So I'm not sure why you could be getting faint, but definitely fatigue is a symptom of both B12 and iron deficiency. And if you're not eating a ton of animal matter, which there's nothing wrong with being plant-based at all. You just have to be way more on top of your nutrition if you're not, for a number of reasons. And if you're not eating a lot of animal matter, then you're probably getting lower levels of iron and lower levels of B12. And although you can find iron-rich foods like spinach would be an example, that are leafy greens, the absorption of that non-heme iron from leafy greens is much less. So I would say that if you can incorporate more animal matter into your diet, that would help. But I would definitely think about adding an iron supplement as well.
Good. I'll make one last call for any questions. We're at an hour right now. The last question that is up here is Jason asked, are any of the supplements that we have best absorbed on an empty stomach?
No, I don't. To be honest, I'm not sure exactly if they're on magnesium, food or non-food, if it makes a difference. But on vitamin D, it's definitely better to take with food. And on iron, it's definitely better to take with food.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it. Unless any other questions pop up while I start to wrap up. Just want to thank everybody. Thank Shannon. And really, really appreciate all the preparation to give us the information. we launched a big campaign that I'm sure that most of you have seen today. We have a ton of clinics coming. We're basically putting on an online workshop or online conference over the next 2 months. Almost 20 different presenters, and a ton of you have already supported us, shared those, or shared that information and helped us kind of launch and get that out there. Super, super cool. Super excited about all the experts that are providing this information. Similar format that you've kind of experienced today. Some of it may be a little bit more interactive and physically active, but overall super cool. Free for everyone to attend, and we just thank you to everyone who's already supporting that. So I guess the one last comment that Sam made was he's always been told that magnesium is best absorbed via the skin rather than internally.
Yeah, so definitely there's a lot of evidence showing that magnesium is well absorbed if you apply it topically, 100%. That's kind of the whole idea beyond or with Epsom salt baths and why they can be beneficial. Fully agree with that.
Perfect. So good way to end. You guys, if you have any comments or feedback, please shoot us a message. Like I said, we want to do more of these and think that it's so freaking beneficial. So let us know what you thought of it, and we'll see you guys, everyone, soon, I hope. Thanks for participating.
So much, guys. Appreciate all the questions.
See ya.